Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Ranisha. Today's story is one that the Jamaican government has tried to forget, but today we're bringing it to light. It's a story of violence, injustice, and survival. It's the kind of story that chills you to the core, but also reminds you how strong people can be in the face of persecution. Bad Friday is a 1963 incident which took place in Coral Gardens, Montego Bay, St. James. This was a very crucial time for the Rastafarian Jamaican community. This incident has left scars that have yet to be healed, and it has been decades. Let's get into it. Now imagine this. It's 1963, just 1 year since Jamaica gained independence from the British. The country was buzzing with hope, but not everyone was feeling that freedom. The Rastafarians, those people with their bold dreadlocks, their love for Africa, their use of ganja, they were seen as outsiders. They didn't fit the description of the new Jamaica. The government at the time, led by Sir Alexander Bustamante, didn't like that. In fact, most Jamaicans thought that Rastafarians were violent and they just didn't fit. But here's the thing, they weren't even a threat. They just wanted to live their lives in peace. But everything changed one fateful day in April. So now you're probably asking, what happened in April? A small argument at a gas station in the community of Coral Gardens outside of Montego Bay. A group of Rastafarians had been living there, struggling to make ends meet. One day, they got into a heated argument with the gas station owner. Words were exchanged, and before you know it, a fire broke out. In the chaos that followed, unfortunately, a police officer and 2 civilians were killed. And this was the match that lit the fire to one of Jamaica's most devastating crackdowns in history. The Jamaican government's response was brutal. Prime Minister Bustamante gave the order, bring the Rastas in, dead or alive. Let that sink in. He wasn't interested in finding the ones that were involved. He just wanted them all, whether you were included or not. This was when the real nightmare began. The police officers and the military was in every Rastafarian community, sweeping up all the Rastas, bringing them dead or alive. It wasn't a safe time for them at all. They didn't care if you were a man, a woman, or even a child. As long as you were a Rastafarian, you weren't safe. People were beaten, thrown in jail, all because they looked different. Just because they wore dreadlocks. They didn't care if you had anything to do with the fire. As long as you had dreadlocks, you were fair game. And get this, many Rastafarians were forcibly shaved. Their locks, sacred to their faith, was cut off in a way to humiliate and shame them. Imagine being stripped of your culture, your identity, your pride. It was chaos for days. Rastas were being shaved, humiliated, killed, beaten, put in jail. For days it was chaos, all because they were Rastas. Their communities were devastated. Imagine having to be watching your back for something that you didn't do. You had to watch your back because someone that looks like you did something in your community. And here's the thing, after all the raids, No one talked about it. The media was silent, the government moved on, nothing came from it. The people who suffered were left to pick up the pieces. But for the Rastafarians, April 1963 will always be known as Bad Friday. It was a day that once again proved that they were seen as outcasts, less than human. They were persecuted just for being who they were. Now fast forward to the present. The Rastafarians, the survivors and their descendants for decades demanded justice. They wanted the world to know what really happened, and finally, after 50 years of silence, they got a response. In 2017, Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness finally gave the Rastafarians a public apology. He called the Coral Gardens incident a grave injustice. He set up a fund to compensate the survivors, but to many that wasn't enough. Can you blame them? But here's what's amazing. Even after all that pain, all that violence, the Rastafarian movement is still alive and strong today. It didn't break them. If anything, it made them stronger. Their resilience is a part of the story of modern Jamaica. Their culture, their beliefs, it's in the art, it's a part of the very soul of Jamaica. And so the Coral Gardens incident, Bad Friday, isn't just a story of tragedy. It's a story of survival, a community that refused to be silenced. And even though it took over 50 years to get an apology, truth finally came out. So the next time you hear a reggae song or you see someone proudly rocking their dreadlocks, remember, it's not just a style or a sound. It's about a history of pride and resistance that no one can erase. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I hope it gave you some insight into Jamaica's history, about the Rastafarians and all that they've been through. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share with your friends, and subscribe.